It's Monday, April 20th, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. Unemployment figures continue to rise, with some 16,000 workers now on the breadline as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Word of this from Labour Minister Colin Jordan, who was speaking on the current affairs program The People's Business last night, along with union leaders, about the impact of the pandemic on the island's workforce.
The Prime Minister was very clear when she spoke to the nation. She indicated the number of applications to the National Insurance Scheme for unemployment benefits. At that time, it was upward of about 14,000, I think. At this point, I think we may be closer to about 16,000. And so what is happening across the world has not skirted our shores. And because of the closures of business, because of the closing of the borders, we have tourism, which is one of our major employers, almost at a standstill. And so there are thousands of persons who are not employed at the moment. We have kept open essential services and made some adjustments to those over time, but the bulk of the economy would be operating at a very slow pace at the moment. And so there is significant dislocation among workers at this time.
General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Senator Tony Moore, admits she is concerned about the current unemployment situation.
One thing we can say is that COVID-19 is no respecter of persons. The COVID-19 has had its direct impact on hotels and tourism. And in the labor movement, we have been, in the BWU certainly, we have been in discussions over the last 3 to 4 weeks with a number of partners. And when I say partners, I mean where we have collective agreements, trying to assess the situation and see what methods we would need to apply in order to contain the labor situation in Barbados. As the Minister of Labor has said, the currently unemployment stands during COVID-19 stands at above 16,000, just under 17,000. And this is a situation that we are expecting to increase. But while we expect the worst, we still are planning for the worst. Actually, we continue to hope for the best.
Acting General Secretary of the National Union of Public Workers, Delcia Burke, said while public workers have not been impacted, that could change if the situation continues.
So far, NPW represents the government public service. And so far, no public servant has been impacted. Workers are either on the job in the office or working from home, or some of them are at home and not working but being paid. But the NPW recognizes that Barbados is driven by tourism. And if this situation continues for much longer, we suspect that it is going to have an impact on employment in the public service. We are hoping that it doesn't, but to be realistic, we believe that if this situation continues as it is right now, that we are going to have a serious problem in the public service.
A frontline worker is among the 75 persons in Barbados who have tested positive for COVID-19. The confirmation from Health and Wellness Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic came yesterday following a tour of a new field medical facility provided by the Barbados Defence Force to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital.
From the beginning, we have been doing all that we can to ensure the safety of the persons who are on the front line, and bearing in mind, of course, that we have people within public health with the necessary level of experience and expertise, and in some cases even exposure in the area of what we call combat zones abroad. We've been able to do a lot of training, a lot of sensitizing, and I'm very happy to say that things have been going quite well so far. I will say to you that up to this point in time, we do not have any evidence except for one case we had. We had one case earlier, and that was dealt with, and there are no issues going forward.
However, the minister warned Barbadians against becoming complacent, especially in light of no new recorded COVID-19 cases over a 4-day period.
But I want to urge the public that although this is indeed an encouraging sign, we are not yet out of the woods. We cannot take our guard down. We have to continue with what we're doing. We are encouraged, but we know very well that there is no certainty as to whether or not we have cases out there in the community. That is something that we are trying to find out on a daily basis. And when we are able to get some more swabs into the country, that we can expand even further the amount of persons that we are testing on a daily basis, that would then give us a better idea. So we still have a couple of weeks, we would like to think, to go before we can say exactly where we are. But we are indeed encouraged by the last few days.
No crop over festival or NIFCA this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Cabinet made the decision to cancel the major festivals based on a recommendation by the Ministry of Creative Economy, Culture and Sports in light of ongoing global efforts to contain the contagious and deadly virus. According to a press release from the Government Information Service, Cabinet also agreed that the ministry, through the National Cultural Foundation, would replace the festivals with a national training program in schools and communities.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Regionally, COVID-19 cases in the Bahamas rose to 60 as the country recorded 2 new cases on Sunday. More in this report from ZNS.
Health officials note that there are now 51 confirmed cases in New Providence, 7 in Grand Bahama, 1 in Bimini, and 1 in Cat Key. Of the new cases, number 59 is a 67-year-old male of New Providence. He remains in isolation at home. Case number 60 is a 53-year-old male, also of New Providence. He has been hospitalized. Now, both cases have no history of travel. 11 persons have recovered, and 898 remain in quarantine.
And finally, a 51-year-old gunman dressed as a policeman killed at least 13 people, including a police officer in Nova Scotia. More from City News, Toronto.
A man suspected of opening fire in a rural Nova Scotia community, leaving multiple victims behind him and leading police on an overnight chase, is now dead. An RCMP officer was killed and another injured during a manhunt for the shooting suspect, identified as 51-year-old Gabriel Wortman. This rapidly evolving situation started as a firearms complaint late Saturday night in the small community of Portapique, along the Bay of Fundy, about an hour and a half from Halifax. Now, 9 hours after police were first called about a person with a gun, they said they were dealing with an active shooter. Investigators say the 911 calls led them to a residence in Portapique. Officers described arriving to a chaotic scene with several casualties inside and outside the home. The search for the suspect led police through multiple communities, with a number of structures lit on fire along the way. In a bizarre twist, Mounties had warned the gunman may have been impersonating an officer, saying he might be driving a lookalike RCMP vehicle and wearing a uniform.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.